Hello and welcome back, DP World Tour Picks and Bets. We are back with another event here. Skylar, Hoke, Tom Jacobs. How are we doing, my friend?
Oh, good. Yeah, it's good. It's actually quite refreshing looking at this field and seeing a long book of course form and a decent period of consecutive current form and being able to trust the numbers. Like it's been a while, right? It's not something that's a trio we've not been able to rely on. So it feels like a real event.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. This is a good little stretch that we get into here leading up to the Open Championship. And I think with the book of form we get a good list of golfers in the field, some that obviously teed it up in the US Open, some that are playing on the other golf tour out there. I think we have to, before we really even dive into the show, kind of address both of those. I mean, US Open yesterday, one of our own. I guess we could classify one of your own for sure. I try to, come in with the DP World Tour angle, but man, Fitzy was electric. That was one of the best days, if not the best day of golf that, I can really remember watching.
No, I honestly I didn't get to see much because I was away for the first couple of days. So I didn't get to see the opening of it. But everyone was talking about how good the golf course was, and there was always the pre-week talk of Fitz obviously winning the US Amateur there before, and I just couldn't buy the price, which is fine. Like sometimes it's just a guy at a number that you say no to, and everyone kind of steams in, and I'm glad you kind of stuck with it and got your winning bet on him. But like, to me, like it was actually quite refreshing. I never want to lose bets, right? But like by Sunday, I had absolutely no chance. It was over, right? So all I had to do was just sit there and just cheer on Fitzpatrick, which is not a position I've generally been in. Like if he's been playing, it's normally against someone that I like or have bet on. And basically, I had two chances of either Fitzpatrick or Zalatoris winning, and both of them would have been, just deserved, really. So electric, performance from Fitz, really good from Zalatoris for the most part. Again, just very, very unlucky. Putt just didn't go in right. Not even a bad putt. Fitz is, the work on his game has paid off. Like I think he took the whole of January off. Billy Foster was, very clear on how hard he works. His family said the same thing. If Alex Fitzpatrick isn't any good at golf, he's going to be very good at speaking in the future because he took over those interviews quite well. But yeah, I just think he deserved it, right? I think he deserved to win. And I think we've probably said a couple of times on this show and on Lost Words as well, like he was just as likely to win a major as he was a PGA Tour event. I don't think it was ever like, oh my God, he can't win a major. It was just like, he just needs to get out of the line. And it just happened to be last week.
Yeah. I mean, everything led to that. I mean, you can just build it up. And I think that I listen a lot to Andy Johnson, Shotgun Start, Fried Egg stuff, and just the elevation of game of both those two guys, that isn't happening on the tour. That they both obviously haven't won, but the ability, I mean, they're the best players there. They were no doubt 1-2, and Scotty, of course, right there. And just to show that next level in majors that they are, that can't really be shown week in and week out on the tour. Maybe it could, and maybe they're just, I mean, Tiger's basically the only one that really did that, but it's just such a unique thing to see in the majors and trust those guys almost more, if not more than the guys ranked ahead of them in the world. There's probably not much more you want 1-2 going into the Open Championship than both of those guys.
Yeah, I think like I said this about the US Open before, like the start of the week, like it generally seems to give off the most reflective leaderboards of what we've seen. And certainly the top five. I mean, you've got Fitzpatrick, Scheffler, Zalatoris, Hideki, Rory, Morikawa. I'd throw Bradley into the mix because, he's been playing really good golf this season, hit the ball well. There was a couple of surprises with, McCarthy, Damon, but like Hadwin and Woodland are very solid. And like it generally just seems to give us the best representation. Whereas I think like an Open can get a little bit quirky because of, wave splits, and the Masters generally goes to people that have played there X amount of times, and PGA is a different test from every time. So I think the US Open is a real staple of just giving us the best kind of players. And your guy Guido had a great finish of a 66 on Sunday, so he obviously likes those US Opens.
Man, I mean, that was I guess Hideki bested him, but like one of the rounds of the tournament. I mean, it was unbelievable, and just truthfully out of literally nowhere. I mean, he finished T10 for us a few weeks ago, and outside of that, just I think I tweeted it was last 20 starts, he had one top 30 finish going in. So making the weekend
he's basically been
was
dead.
huge. Yeah, and here we are. I'm in now. Now I got to bet on, of course, Scottish, of course, Open Championship. I mean, every week here on out, there was like deep numbers already for the Open Championship. I'm like, oh, I take a little double look there. We're right back into full Guido season, and I think we can transition, from the major championship into probably what's going to continue to be one of the, I guess, headlines, and always going to be almost a little bit of a stain on kind of the atmosphere going around of some of the best golf being played, is how Live Golf Tour is currently bringing in the best of the best in the world, or some at the top of the world, and how that's impacting our guys here on the DP World Tour. And some got to play, some will continue to be over there, some probably got one shot at it and maybe never again. But kind of what's your take, and not even on the whole thing at all, it's just more or less how is impacting our DP World Tour, and where do we go from here?
There's an opportunity for the DP World Tour right now, and people that follow me on Twitter and generally listen to the podcast will know I'm a little bit not pro. I've never been pro the tour and the people that back it, but like the players. Like I think some of the players just deserve to take the opportunity that's been presented to them, and I find it really hard to argue with that. And especially like Richard Bland, like what was he going to do for the next 2 years of his career before the Champions Tour? This is just a great window to do it, right? So, but that aside, like the DP World Tour has been in a bad place. We've been commenting on it every week. I've probably been a little bit more pessimistic than you, but that's because you're American and I'm English. That's just nature's taking course. They've got the opportunity to either let the guys play, which is basically what I think they're going to do. Keith Pelly's been quiet for a very, very long time. There was rumours that he met up with representatives of the Live Tour. They're obviously in the field this week. Now, I think that was like a BMW thing. Like BMW are a massive sponsor on the DP World Tour, and Wiesberger and Sergio, and they've all been long-time players. So I don't think that's a true representation of what to expect. But like you threw it towards me that like it's almost a win-win, because if they don't let them do that, and it's because the PGA Tour strengthened their alliance with them, then they win from that as well. I mean, at the moment, I don't think they've benefited from that alliance. And if anything, there's probably half of the European Tour, DP World Tour field that actually has probably got their nose out of joint and not been playing the Scottish Open. So interesting to see how it develops.
Yeah, I was really down in the dumps about how this was going to impact the DP World Tour, thinking of the scenario, the best of these guys are going to go there. And if they're not invited there, it's easier for them to get the PGA Tour. It just weakens the field strength overall. And now I do view it differently in the sense that there has to be some type of ruling if they're going to let them play. Then you're going to see guys that you would have never seen on the DP World Tour play a handful of events every year. We're going to see, just interesting guys. I mean, imagine Dustin Johnson teeing it up at some of these events. Like it's one of my favorite follows. I'm normally just on Twitter. He always watches our show. Like he's just like, how's DJ going to prepare for some of these events that literally, never in a million years would you imagine. And if maybe he's not going to be the guy, but maybe it's, just more and more down that list of these guys that keep getting announced that we're going to have, and it's going to impact this. And if not, if they're choosing to put their foot down and not having it, the only way they're going to say no is if the PGA Tour like really makes this a partnership, not some little like, hey, we're going to combine a couple of events and do something like literally nothing. Like you made a great comment in saying that most of our guys in the DP World Tour are going to struggle to get into the Scottish Open. Like that is not what it was meant to be. So if there can be some type of like free flowing status or invitations or last top 10 on the European Tour event gets to pop over and play on the PGA Tour, like some type of thing. I mean, that would really make a huge difference. And so I think it could go both routes. So I don't see how it could end up all that negative from the way it has been the last 6 months. chance.
I just think the DP World Tour has been doomed, and like, that's a really horrible thing to say when we're such big fans of it. We record a show, but it's just been in such a bad place. Like I think they handled COVID pretty poorly, which wasn't easy, right? They rely very heavily on the Middle East, and now obviously trying to take a stance against that. That's a difficult situation to be in. That main point. I mean, to Peter Uline's credit, I've just done a podcast with him about Live Golf, and he was the guy that brought up the fact that there's a lot of players that are unhappy they're not going to be able to play. Like he mentioned, Matthew Southgate is a good example. Like this is a guy that lives and breathes links golf, and that's how he keeps his card every year. And he's not going to be in the Scottish Open field. Like, and actually, the idea is that the PGA Tour is going to try and take more Rolex Series events as well. So all of a sudden, you're just going to get, you're going to get the best of the best from a viewing standpoint. Like, okay, the DP World Tour is a really, really strong event, and you've got the Morikawas, the Rorys, whatever. But like, you're not getting a separate tour then almost. And it's like, we love the DP World Tour because you've got Wiesberger, Dietrich, Peters as leaders, sprinkled in with some of the best guys that come in every now and then. And we see the stories of Ryan Fox and Victor Perez and, just break through, like Pablo Larafabal, like for example, like he's not going to have that kind of year if these guys are playing regularly. So there's a lot to figure out. I think the biggest problem at the moment that I can see is the Ryder Cup. Like basically every Ryder Cup captain, and there's going to be more to come, is going to be ineligible as it stands. Like Garcia's already over there, Westwood's already over there, Poulter's already over there. That's 3 of the next 6 captains. The current captain, probably a candidate for the Live Tour. That probably leaves Luke Donald for now. I mean, GMAC's out. That's another guy out. So who do you put in? I mean, Martin Keimer's another one. So all of a sudden, where are these captains coming from? Justin Rose, I guess, but he probably still has, plans to play it. And it just feels like there's a reason they haven't made an announcement yet.
Yeah, a ton of moving parts, a ton of impacts. And yeah, I think going to what you said there, the drive for the game of golf is different for a lot of different people and our positions and to the casual viewers. And I do think the way it's evolving is definitely not really good for the game overall, what's really happening, and struggle to see the positive sides out of that. But could there be an elevation of this? And could, I just don't want to have what I love about golf, not Zalatoris yesterday. What I loved about golf was Zalatoris 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, and Guido when he comes up early, and Kitayama winning after getting through qualifying school, and Henny changed his life 2 weeks ago. That's awesome. Like that is so good for him. And I view those type of guys so differently taking that opportunity than some of the other, guys that did. Because I mean, who knows when Henny's going to get a chance to do something like that? Like that's incredible for him. But yeah, I mean, I just don't want to give up the path of which these golfers take to really tell their story and get into those moments that if that is taken away like that sucks.
To me, like, I agree. Like the thing is, like the PGA Tour will, like, they keep sort of doom and glooming it like this is going to ruin the PGA Tour. There's a conveyor belt of people that's going to keep coming out of college, going to the Corn Ferry Tour, going to Live Tour. Like Live Tour can't buy everybody, so they don't want to. They only want 48 guys, right? So there's going to be this conveyor belt. I mean, Cameron Young wouldn't have been someone they would have been targeting 2 years ago. They are now obviously going to try and target him, but for every Scotty Scheffler, there's another Will Zalatoris that took 2 years extra to get going, right? So there's always going to be these conveyor belt of players coming through there. So I think the PGA Tour's fine. I think they've got some things to fix, but that's on them. In terms of the DP World Tour, like again, we've got the Challenge Tour, we've got the DP World Tour for now. I think Q Score is obviously coming back, so like you've got some avenues into there. There's an alliance with the Asian Tour with Liv, where they're going to be playing these international series events. So the week before every single event, there'll be an international series event. Because that was what I didn't understand about Liv, was like, I said to PG Line, like bluntly, like you're among the first 48 guys, but once they get all the guys they want, like what happens to you? And the idea is that like you play these international series events every year, which you have an extended contract on, and then you can play your way into the Liv like field. So there is opportunities for it. This is not a pro live discussion, but more just there is some thought to it. And I just think that the DP World Tour will probably benefit depending on how they go.
Yeah, we could spend hours,
We could.
kind of going round and round.
I have,
but
and it doesn't normally end well, which is I think the one thing that I would say is that, like, it's very much like politics. Like if you're on the opposite side to politics to somebody else, you're probably not going to agree. And I always very gracious that you're very open minded. We'll discuss it, and it won't end in disappointment or even argue. We'll never argue, but debate. It'll always be like, okay, you're on that side of the fence, you're on that side of the fence, and that's fine. Mine's just always been about how the players interpret it and take those opportunities. So hopefully it means a good thing for us, because I think the DP World Tour can get a boost from it.
Yeah, I think there's definitely the route that could go. So with no further ado, let's jump on in. You mentioned off the top one of the historical events, one that we see year in and year out with really good fields, one that has some history at this course. We're going to the BMW International Open. It's going to be at the Munich Eichenried, I believe is how
that's great. That's definitely better than I'd have done.
So I believe we saw it last year, where Victor Hovland won there, and then 2019 was the last time this course was played, and about as opposite of a player of Victor Hovland that there is currently. Andrea Pavon won here, and so he was
Patrick, by the way.
Yeah, you're right. Hey, look at that. Long way. We have Matt Wallace winning before that. Andres Romero, and then you mentioned off the top, Ryder Cup captain Henrik Stenson, if we look at previous winners here specifically. But we come into the event, if you look at the top of the board, Billy Horschel, Memorial champion coming off of US Open. What's really interesting is we have a good amount of players that played in the US Open. None of the good ones even made the weekend, really. Good ones, quote unquote. Some of the guys that we'll talk about a little bit later on the board had a little run at things. But I guess if you keep on going down off the top, I'm very interested down the board. Was there anything that stood out from the top side of things?
Yeah, so to me, I just went in on Bert Wiesberger, and to be honest, it was a difficult. I say it was difficult. It wasn't a difficult decision. I quite liked the price. I saw 25 to 1 or 22 to 1, whatever it is that you can get. And I just thought that was fair enough. You've got the bonus of Horschel and Oosthuizen coming over, and you could argue that means that Wiesberger's less likely to win. I'd argue he's probably got exactly the same chance and just gets a slightly boosted price. He now comes in behind Peters, Smith and Fox in the market, which I get. Fox is in great form. Peters obviously showed something at the US Open last week, but this guy is far and away the best ball striker. I mean, you talk about it all the time. Just the way he hits his irons, the way he hits his driver, just perfect. So it does hinge on a putting stroke. And I just took it from the fact that he just plays so well in Germany. He's got 4 top 7 finishes in his last 7 starts in Germany. He's got 3 fifths, 2 more top 20s. And, if he just channels some of that, and he must putt well in this part of the world to achieve those results, right? I think he's someone that could benefit from the fact that week 1 of the Live Tour is out of the way. He's obviously had that hanging over him, knowing the decision was coming. Now played it, now been paid, I guess, and doesn't have to worry about all those sort of things. Will he face some criticism in the crowds? I don't think so. I don't really see why anyone would bother in Germany. So I think he's got a great chance of coming in and contending, especially if he thinks it could be the last time he plays on the DP World Tour for a while.
Yeah, it's an interesting mindset for some of those guys, and top of the leaderboard's kind of littered with them. In some ways, a relief, I'm sure, of just having it out there over with, and you just play and you tee it up, and it is what it is. And I guess others, I guess there's no control of what they're doing. They just go and play. Maybe they continue. I think what stood out to me is Horschel, because of some of the recent form, I think it's a deserving favorite. But Louis, even I guess the biggest price, I think is Sergio's price is just odd. It's very odd. And he's been terrible. And 28 to 1, though, you're looking at him being longer than Louis, Fox, Smith, Peters, Burned. Just the next person would be, Rasmus would be there. It just feels that, are we going to see peak Sergio or the really good Sergio, even of what we saw last year? 28-1 definitely had me, double, triple taking and being like, okay, but it's just been putrid golf from him. And I think enough for me that with the question marks overall, I'm just going to be dropping down a little bit deeper. I know you went with a golfer, two-time winner. We kept going back a little bit, who's been elite this season too.
Pablo Larrafa, it's been like Fox for the last 5 or 6 events where you just go, you either feel like it's going to come to an end or you just have to keep backing him, right? And Fox has generally been pretty reliable. Perez has been pretty reliable, and Larrafa in a great bit of form, probably you would say a career year so far. It has to be, right? I mean, he won in 2014 and 2015. One of those was here, but he's got a victory over Sergio Garcia in a playoff here in 2011, which obviously that's a big player, like in general, but that's also, I don't know that he idolizes him or even likes him, but like he's the leading Spanish golfer of a generation, right? Then you've got Henrik Stenson that he beats by 1 stroke in 2015. That's 2 really elite players. His first 4 scouts were Colin Montgomery, he beat 4 strokes in France. He beats Sergio in a playoff, beats Rory McIlroy and Phil Mickelson by a stroke, beats Henrik Stenson by a stroke. Like, more recently, he's beaten Adrian House, Jordan Smith in the playoff, and Adrian Otaegui in Spain. But all of those were in really good form. So I just thought the price was pretty much too big for someone that loves a golf course and is in decent form.
Yep. And I think chalking up, the last couple lead-in events to what you said earlier. What was weighing on the mind of these guys before the live announcement, having no idea what they're coming? You can write off probably a couple of those and get back to where he has been prolific, kind of at this course in this season. I'm starting with a golfer, kind of digging into the live golf tour. Statistics were terrible. Like, you couldn't really find any strokes gained stuff, but watching a little bit, and almost, Henny's 1A to the week. Oliver Becker, I'd almost view as 1B, basically to the season of these South African golfers who have really shown up from being challenge tour graduates to elite staples on the DP World Tour week in and week out, and then playing very, very well in the live golf tour. And I think going the week after, like Henny was supposed to go to the challenge tour the week after, didn't tee up there. Have a couple weeks in between now. Becker's back on the DP World Tour. If you looked at his stroke or his fairways and greens and regulation numbers, and even from the eye test, watched a little bit, and he was just putting it to 10, 12 feet and just couldn't make putts. He was really, really striping it. And I think him at 45 just feels like in this field, I don't know. Again, I'm kind of writing off that little weekend before. I guess it was a major for him, and then he had missed one other cut, I believe, at the Dutch Open when he was really, really bad. Outside of that, we've seen him be incredible most of this season. So yeah, 40-1 was the longest number I saw in Becker. That's kind of where I'm starting.
It's really tough, right? So I had Oliver Becker written down, and anyone that just looks at OWGR for stats, you're not going to see the fact that you finished 6th at the live event, right? Then you've got the conundrum of what do you put into a 54-hole shotgun start event. We're not going to know that until a year down the line, like how important the form is. All the kind of suggestions last week was that they're all really bad at the US Open. They were also all put in a pretty bad wave. So whether that was a little bit of punishment, I don't know. But the thing with Becker that you can trust is that he was in that good form going into that, like 10th, 2nd, 27th, 4th. And yes, he missed 2 cuts, but one of them, like you say, was a major. You're just going to expect that from Oliver Becker. One missed cut you're basically talking about, and you've got a price of 45-1. And the boosted price is the same thing I'm going to say about someone else in a minute, is more to do with the quality strength rather than the reflection of his form and quality. So he's just getting boosted price because there's better players here now.
Yeah. Yep. 100%. And I think that kind of, I guess, is my overall take kind of on the top of the board. I go down deep because of everything going on, because of, international travel after a US Open, because of a lot of things. I do think we have some opportunity for some longer shots on the board overall. I believe I go next. Yeah, if we kind of stay on this kind of path. The price I came running to this morning was Nicholas Norgard Muller. Back-to-back 10th place finishes. And I remiss. We didn't speak after the last event, Scandinavian Mixed Open. shout out Lindgren. That was
Yeah,
unbelievable.
unbelievable. Yeah,
Just completely demolishing the field. Good for her. Good for the game of golf for having that happen. I wish it was on a bigger display.
it needed that, right? Like
yeah.
we mentioned that it needed a female winner, and it wasn't just a win; it was just a complete decimation of the field. And any doubt that people had about different tees, and honestly, she won by like 9 strokes. So
yeah. And she beat the next lady by 14. Like
it was like dominant, and it was amazing. So yeah, it was definitely worth a mention there.
Yeah, and so Nicholas Norgard Muller, he had gone out quite hot in that event early. I believe it was like 400 through 6. And it's like, okay, he was probably one that was on the cusp of cards for quite a few people. He had finished 10th the week prior in Germany at the Porsche European Open. And I mentioned off the top, AD, abnormally distant, he always refers to Muller as Little Vic. And last winter we saw here, Vic Hovland. So I think just potentially, if we're going the driving angle, and we haven't really even talked how this course can be suited, we've seen a variety of winners. Hovland's probably the most of the anomaly versus some of the other guys being shorter plotters, really good with their short game. If you think of Romero, if you think of Pablo, of course, where you hit fairways and not overwhelmed by the driver. But I think that can be evolved with some of the better driving guys and not really look at the skill set stack as much as kind of find some value. And Muller stood out. I think he's still as long as 80 to 1 the last I saw him, right before we went live here. So yeah, he's for me.
Yeah, like you say, to your point about the skill set, like I purposely didn't mention it just because I think it is so wide ranging. Like I think it's just a course that rewards good form. We've seen that in the past, apart from Andres Romero, that was playing horrendously. I think it was about 300 to 1 when he won. But like, yeah, I'd probably just favour strong iron play over driving distance and accuracy. But like, you can get it done anyway. And I think with Nicholas Muller he just needed a bit of consistency. Like he was showing flashes of form for 2 rounds, 3 rounds, 1 round. Never really sort of saw it through, but was making plenty of cuts. And then all of a sudden he goes 31st, 10th, and you're like, okay, this is an Norgard Muller that we expected to graduate. Again, like Becker, another one that was kind of close to me. I just took the guys that I thought could contend. But like, well, that would sound funny when I go further down the board. But like, he just, to me, strikes me as a player that is ready to finish 7th, 8th, 6th. A little bit like probably the discussion about Richard Mansell. I feel like I'll wait to see it, but then you'll probably miss the price, which is obviously what you're going for.
Yeah, yep. I think elite talent with a lot of upside. I still got a laundry list, so I'm still going to go next here. If we looked at recent form, if we looked at specific recent iron form, I would dare argue that nobody has showing it more than Masashiro Kawamura. I think he is ending up being a little bit more popular of a selection than anticipated. And maybe it's because literally the last time we saw him was the best irons of his entire career. Was really, really good. And then he had I think he finished 5th in strokes gained approach 2 weeks prior to that. Kawamura's an odd one as I had higher hopes of kind of the way he was playing post-COVID. I was trying to think, did he nab? I don't think he did win anything, did he? No, he finished 2nd. I believe he lost to Bob in that showdown.
Cyprus, yeah.
Yeah, when McIntyre went really low on that Sunday. Showdown, what an event that was. But yeah, he hasn't taken on to what I think his upside has been, and he'll just have random spike weeks. And the fact that we've kind of starting to see that progression really specifically with the irons, just love it a lot.
He was just so bad for a stretch, right? Like he finished 6th at the Razal Khan, 27th and 6th back to back, and you thought, okay, he's going to sort of continue what he did last season. And then all of a sudden, 42nd miscut, 44th miscut, and then all of a sudden 23rd, 47th, 5th. Like he is good enough to win. Like he has that elite skill set, like you say, that you can rely on. Just hasn't done it yet. And then, like you say, he's very, very popular. What tour did he won on, like way back in 2013? He's won before. I think that must have just been the Japanese tour.
So yeah, Japanese tour. Yep.
Panasonic Open it was. So, but when you look at that like event, like Wei Yang was 3rd, like Wade Ormsby 7th, Kyung-Hun Lee's 9th. Like he's beat some guys. Like I know they're not elite players and maybe not the best in this field, but like, why Yang's we know everything about him. So I don't know. Like, he's just one of those people. I think when you start seeing people get popular, you sort of stuff out of them. And again, he was just one of those guys that was on that list. And if you take the approach you did with Matthew Fitzpatrick and ignore people making him popular and not worry about it, it's probably going to work out all right. So I have nothing negative to say.
Yeah, I think when we talk like a little bit of stretch of form in the 80-1, 90-1 range of a DP World Tour golfer, it's a little bit different than potentially, Fitz showing that he's a top 5 golfer in the world for about a year.
Yeah, that's true.
But you never know with Calamora. So we'll see. We'll see what
could
we
be
can have.
could be the next Asian major winner.
Hey, and you speak of a golfer in red hot form. You almost just throw out 2 rounds of what happened at the U.S. Open. It's just like, is Marcel Snyder just going to pick up where he left off the last time we saw him?
I just don't care about the US Open. Like, it's same with Oliver Becker. Like, it just doesn't matter to me. They're not ready for major contention. Anything they did at a major would have been bonus. Like, we've seen like Fox play well at a major. I was kind of hoping Perez was going to do the same last week. Like, these guys have been in the heat of the battle and been in Players Championships and been in, WGCs, and these guys haven't. So I really don't care. Like, it's a bonus they got into the field. They've had probably an experience of their lifetime. Teed off with probably a couple of their heroes. He's now back to where he belongs, and he played well last time out when we saw him in Germany in front of his own crowd. And I just all the time. I mean, he was 100-1 over here when I sort of wrote him up, and 7th, 4th, and 5th the last 3 starts. Like, and the 5th was in front of his own fans. Like, I just don't. Until he doesn't do it, like, I'm just going to keep backing it. That's a full disclosure. Like, if he's 80-1 every week and he's finishing inside the top 10, I'm just going to keep doing it. I mean, he won't be. When these players go, he'll be 40s. But
yeah, something gives. Either price is going to give or form is going to give, and you can kind of make the decision. But yeah, there's no reason to doubt a lot of these guys based off of. I mean, I always get more excitement and higher hopes than probably should for these guys as they go over to majors and play. I actually thought Manzo was a terrific play last week, being how good of a driver he is and what is demanded at the U.S. Open, and he was putrid. But like, you just throw it out, and it's almost you just continue on what's going.
It's almost better that they miss the cut than they scrap around finishing 50th. Like, they don't get anything out of finishing 50th, right? Like, I guess you could argue, yes, you've made a cut and it feels good, but you've then had the onslaught of Brookline for 2 days. I just don't need it. Yeah.
So I guess the only golfer that felt that way to me. So obviously Peters played really, really well, but I view Peters differently. Like, it was good. I can never put my finger on like Will Bessling's game. Like, I just can't do it. And then here he is, like top 25, top 30, hanging around, going into the weekend, playing decent. Like, I thought that was good for him. It doesn't change anything, but maybe it's like, okay, he's one of those golfers that you feel just can't get over the line. And that could be something. But yeah, he was the only one out of, you kind of see this laundry list that played. I mean, even finishing 56, it's not too big of a deal. But
way open though, right? Like 2 rounds of 71 on a tough golf course, and even 74. He bounced back on Sunday from a 77 on Saturday. So he showed some good stuff. And to your point, I've just said finishing tied 50th means nothing, but to him, it does. Like, Soderbergh had 1 bad round and actually played well for most of it. Like, there's a couple that will get stuff out of it. Like, to Richard Bland, I don't think he gets anything out of finishing 43rd because he's been there and done it before. Like, I don't know. Is
like Guido, I mean,
yeah.
That's probably like a renewed confidence for the way the state of his game is right now.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, and I think with like Bessling's like case, like he has a good skill set and one that stands out, and he's put its use in a major, and that's really impressive.
Yep, for sure. If I think we're following down the odds boards, I didn't know exactly. I still have. Gosh, I still got 4 Tom. So I'm going to roll into next golfer for me here. And it's one of the things I'm trying to figure out as I dive into statistics. And I think Tour Tips helps with some of this stuff. It's just like flashes, like in middles of rounds, or even like, I mean, I don't want to really get into small sample sizes, but like, it just feels like you've seen certain guys on top of leaderboards and you go and look, like if you didn't watch, you probably didn't know Aaron Wise had a good week at the U.S. Open last week. You know,
Yeah.
but he was tied for first going out, teeing off on the 9th hole on Saturday afternoon. You know, like, but you're not going to see that really in the stats. So like, that's a huge stretch to the way I'm going now. But like, I'm starting to see those flashes with Christopher Broberg again. And Broberg is a golfer who pretty much won out of absolutely nowhere, last year. And then turned into like what I thought was a solid golfer for a little bit of stretch of time, and then turned into exactly what he was before that. And some of the underlying stats started to improve a little bit. But now you get a stretch where he's made 3 cuts in a row, and it was the first one being where he won last year at the Dutch Open, finishes 14th, chose some life with the irons. Porsche European Open, makes the cut, nothing pretty there. But Scandinavian Mix, his irons were once again red hot. He was sniffing around the leaderboard for a little bit of time, and for somebody that we know has it in their bag of tricks, 125 to 1. And again, it's just your scoreboard watching, you're understanding where these guys get to in middle of rounds, and maybe they throw it away late. But I think Broberg is flashing more than what he's given credit of.
Yeah, and like to your point, 2 out of the last 3 events, he's finished 7th and 8th in tee to green, and his last start finished 7th in strokes gained approach. So there's so much to like about him, and that's completely against what he did to win his last event, right? He just had an almighty putting week. But now you love to see like 14th and 22nd and a made cut in between. Like, even if you haven't had your best stuff, like he didn't have his best iron or tee to green game that week, and still made the cut. And it had 2 bad rounds, but like it didn't really matter too much to him. Now, you could argue that was in Germany, and that's a little bit off-putting, but it doesn't really bother me. Again, like, you've almost, like, obviously you haven't, but you've almost looked at my drafts and then I've deleted it and you've carried on with them. It's just great. Like, it's good to have those guys in, because it means that, you talk about them and I don't have to so much, although I keep trying to sort of make this shorter and don't. But like, he's just a really good player. Like, to your point, you said about the bag of tricks. Like, we know his upside is a win. And I believe he can do it even in this company.
Yeah, I think overall that's it's just the best way to, at least you're not going to realize it unless you spend the time staring at Shot Tracker, like I tend to do every morning from 6 a.m. to about 11 a.m.
Until you should be working, right?
Yeah, I guess so. But continuing, I'm going to, I guess, just talk it through. How deep of odds are we getting here with Ross Fisher?
Ross Fisher is 100 to 1 to me.
Okay, so I'll pass it.
So let's go with him. So he's not made the cut the last 2 times that he's played here, but he's got a 2nd, a 9th, an 11th, and an 18th here. And he's just shown that kind of flash of renaissance in 2022, and 15th and 19th his past 2 starts in strokes gained approach, 18th last time out tee to green. That's leaving him 6th in the field over the last 15 weeks in tee to green. He's lost in the playoff in Germany at 2016 European Open. And he was 29th in that last time out. So this is a really basic thing that you can say about basically all golfers, but if he marries both parts of his games up just for 1 week, like, he'll be fine. Like, he's passing okay some weeks, and then generally terrible when he's hit the ball well, and vice versa. But 100 to 1, I still think there's value.
Yeah, you bet a lot of Ross Fisher this year. I know you have.
Is this it's not quite a Guido situation, but it's getting there.
Yeah, well, he's shown. I mean,
it's not a Wilson situation, I guess.
Yeah,
maybe it's the English thing, right? I mean, I think I've just seen. I guess I'm just putting too much stock in what I saw at Razel kind of like 27 weeks ago, and feel like he's ready to win again. But I do think he can win, and like, what a great story it would be for what we want to see from the DP World Tour, is someone of his storied past who's done it on both stages to actually go and win an event like this.
Yep, absolutely. Here comes, I guess, what I think is just the bet that you guess with off of talent. I mean, you haven't seen. Well, if I go through here, let me see.
This guy is one of those ones that, like, he's popped up on one of the most popular bets on Oddschecker, and I've wondered what you and Brad have done, and all of a sudden I'm just about to find out.
Yeah, so Kazuki Higa, he is the seventh ranked golfer in this field. By OWGR ratings, he is 84th in the world. Now, that comes from ripping up the Japanese golf tour this year to the tune of 2 victories, one coming earlier this month. He had 2 other top 10s mixed in there, has not missed a cut. Played the Zozo, did not play it too well to end the fall last year. Kind of built up, I believe, from the Asian Development Tour earlier on in his career. But I mean, he's been kind of a long-standing guy for the last kind of few years on the Japanese golf tour. He's 27 years old. And again, you just haven't seen him on this stage before. And I don't think OWGR classifies these golfers in the correct manner of what their ranking are. That's obvious. But who knows how his talent is. And I, as always, I make these bets on golfers with similar, if not worse form, on definite worse tours at similar odds. So he opened this morning, one of the craziest things I've seen. So DraftKings Sportsbook opened him at 300 to 1. Okay. He's 130. The best number is 130 right now because DraftKings went from 300 to 100 to 45 to 1 in the matter of about 30 minutes. And then they boosted him all the way back to 130. And I'm still now the longest odds here in the stateside for it. So I think he's available in most places 80 to 130, 80 to 100. I think that's just that range where you're able to put a few on and guess at this talent and somebody who's clearly can win on his own tour. So I'm willing to take that bet.
But we've done it all year, right? We've talked about Asian tour guys and Ju-Young Kim finishing inside the top 25 last week in the US Open. Great. One shot offside the top 14 in a field with Patrick Cantlay, Adam Scott, Xander Schauffele, people like that, Guido Migliozzi. And also in that was like Todd Sinnott, who was another guy that was 31st, plays well on the Asian tour. So this form does translate. And we always talk about what does a 31st at the US Open mean to dropping down to a DP World Tour event, and what does a 23rd from Ju-Young Kim mean? And we're not talking about that from your guy, but like his form is like that, if you know what I mean. So he's playing so well on the Japanese tour that, like we've seen it before, we've seen a Japanese tour player win a major, like in Todd Hamilton. Like that's a long time ago, but like people discount Japanese tour, and it does generally seem to pay off that you see these guys come over, and it does sort of translate into a good finish. So I think the price is obviously coming down to a point where like they're scared to take the bets on him, but like it's all good.
Yep. I think it's fair. Before we get into our last couple selections here at Really Deep Odds, want to make sure if you are somebody who prefers audio format, if you're looking to listen to us on your commutes, please find us at Daily Fantasy Sports Picks and Bets, The Mix, Mayo Media Network. You can find us anywhere on any of those audio platforms that you use. Rate, review, subscribe goes a long way for us, especially as we hit kind of the heat of the summer here for the DP World Tour. It's going to need a lot of conversations. Please give us some love there. It goes a long way for us. Now, both of us, if you talked about me finishing your drafts, I think you're finishing mine here. We mentioned this golfer many of times this season, way more than he deserves.
Oh yeah, he doesn't deserve this airtime. No.
But why are you going back to the Paul Wearingwell?
I'm going back to the Paul Wearingwell because I just believe I deserve a good finish out of him. I just think that he's going to be 200 every week because what he does is he finishes 10th and then he'll miss the cut. And it seems to be that I get really excited about him at 200 and he misses the cut. And then the week later, he's 300 and makes the top 10. He missed the cut when I bet him at the Dutch Open and put him up for this, but he missed the cut by 2 shots. He then went to the European Open again, 2 shots. Like it's not detrimental to his game. Goes to the Scandinavian mix and finishes in 10th place, 9th among the men. He improved his round by 3 shots from rounds 1 to 2. So he put himself really behind the 8 ball to start the week. And then he just got 1 shot better every day. He's got this, you talk about what kind of skill set suits him. He's a guy that can get it out there a long way now. That's one of the things he did to the game. But also has that kind of tidy, can get a hot streak with the irons. And he's been putting a little bit better incrementally as well. And And that's probably why he's not missing cuts by 5 or 6 now. He's missing them by 2, and maybe that's not enough for me to say he's going to win. But like at 200-1, or whatever is the odds that you can get him over there, like there's just plenty to like about Paul Waring as in terms of a player, an upside, and this golf course where he's finished 10th and 11th.
Yep, absolutely. I think he's very fair in on that. And I already have a long betting card, and he's probably one that I feel that I'm just leaving off. And I'm going with somebody right in the similar odds range, and 250-1 for Ricardo Gouvet. And this is again a little bit of, I wouldn't even say you had to scoreboard watch. Again, if you mention what Tour Tips kind of does, they make it really easy to see that finishing round position, along the way. So you can see that Gouvet was, our leader going into the weekend of the Dutch Open. I mean, he opens with, I believe it was a 68 and then a 66, didn't play too well on the weekend, still ends up finishing in 7th. The next week out on the European Open, wasn't that pretty, makes the cut. And then last week, you see his closing final 54 holes were quite strong, 69, 71, 72, kind of made his way, just kind of powered through. But when I see a golfer literally come out of nowhere, he was in almost zero bit of form prior to being that 36-hole leader. And then he makes another cut, and then he comes out the Scandinavian mix, and he's lights out with his irons. Best iron play we've kind of seen of him. And it almost, I guess I want to go back to this kind of comparison here as I pull up. I wouldn't say that, it kind of reminds me of what Broberg did last year, a little bit, where there wasn't any form, and it was a little bit injury related. And then he made 3 cuts in a row, and he missed a cut really bad. And then he kind of made a cut, and then he won. Like, there's finally a little bit of life in there. And we can't forget that, Gouvet was, outside of, he's probably the number 3, maybe 2 prospect coming off of the Challenge Tour last year. Almost got through with the 3 wins, made his only cut last year on the DP World Tour when he played. He was really, really good on the DP or on the Challenge Tour. So I think showing those signs of life, getting back to what we kind of know about him, 250-1, I think there is just that's kind of my explanation of finding a long shot.
Yeah, look, again, you probably wouldn't believe me if I told you that he was someone I started writing up and then took him out. But like, you say he's number 2 or 3, but he was. Did he get Battlefield promotion? I'm pretty sure, or did he get 2?
No, I think he had 2.
And he finished 2nd, I think.
Yes. So the Battlefield was the last event. I've been trying to put this off as long as possible, but Marcus Halikidid won all 3 events. He won the last one. That was the end of the season. So he was the one that was number 1.
So he won the Italian Challenge, the Maiden Isberg Challenge, finished 2nd at the Rolex Tour Grand Final, and 3rd the week before. So and 3rd at the British. So he had 2 really good opportunities, 3 really good opportunities to get that 3rd win.
He almost did it 3 weeks in a row.
Yeah. And again, to your point, it's come out of nowhere a little bit. He had the 26th of the Catalonia Championship. He's a guy that is on the fringe, right? He's a really, really good Challenge Tour golfer, and maybe not consistent enough to flash every week on the DP World Tour, but 7th, 70th, 28th. And that European Open, again, I wouldn't want to throw anything out because that's a tournament. It's in Germany, etc. But that was a really tough week. We saw some horrendous scores at the European Open. So I'm pretty happy to say that maybe just got a little bit funky on the day that he had I think he shot an 80 on the 3rd round. You come back I always like to see they shot an 80 and they come back and shoot 72 the next day. That's a pretty good sign that the game's probably there. So it's all the guys that come out of the clouds, and if you actually look on OWGR, Mark Warren won the Scandinavian mix because they don't actually reward it to Lynn Grant. 300-1, but I think Bouvier is probably more reliable.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm going to round us out one last selection here. We're getting into the 4 digits. We've touched the 3 digits, Tom. That's nothing. We're going 4 once again, per usual. We got to dip our toes into there. I said top 20 when I submitted that, but there was no way I was not gonna at least. I said 1 coffee. You said 2 coffees on Yannick de Bruyne. Looking at a golfer that we see. These guys. It's funny because each year we kind of get some of the similar guys in these Germany events. I was like, oh, I remember talking about him last year. He missed the cut by 7. But they are improving year over year. And I think with the Bruin, what really, really stood out, again, he's had a decent year on the Pro Golf Tour so far. But last week he got his 3rd start on the Challenge Tour this season, T8. So it's first time out there. If you look at the Porsche European Open, hit it a mile, left and right off the tee, but his iron recovery shots were very good in the 2 rounds that he played there. But really, I'm just kind of focusing on what he did in a sense, kind of his closing round of the Challenge Tour, which just kind of stood out to me here. So if you look, again, that T8, and he shot a Sunday 64. So that 64, made him a decent chunk up there. He shot a 67 on Friday. And then overall, there was one other 63 on Sunday. Then there was a 64 by him. Then the next best round was 67. So these guys just absolutely, lapped the field. So to see a pulse out of somebody who's 1,000 to 1, who hopefully we can get 50, maybe even get a 50 to 1 T20, 40 to 1 T20. Like I would take some of that. I'm probably going to be, majority of exposure on a deeper T20. But yeah, I think there's just enough in that number. I've looked left and right for him in the field. I thought he was in the field and then he must have withdrew. Freddie Scott, who was also in, I think, the last event. I think he made the cut. Would have been recently. Would have been Freddie Scott made the cut at the Porsche European Open, who was okay there. He was 4th in that. He closed with a 64, 60, he opened 66, 64, 67. So like some of these German guys are kind of popping a little bit. Scott, I don't think he's in the field anymore. He's not on the entry list, but definitely in on Debray.
Yeah, and to me, like he shot a 78 in the second round to miss that cut by 1. Like he actually opened up pretty, decently. And like you say, you've taken all the points out, because I was just looking at why it was that you liked him other than the miscut in Germany. It was that tied 8th last week and the final round 64. And I was just about to say it was the best by a stretch. And then you see David Booty or whatever his name is from Wales that picked him by 1 shot. But like, that's a really strong finish. Like I don't really care whether you're out of contention or whatever. Like people tend to write those off, and I just factored them in. Like it's a great thing. Like it wasn't out of character. He shot a 67 in round 2. He had a disappointing Saturday, and that's it, right? What more do you need to see out of a player of his stature to throw a coffee at him? I mean, that maybe 2. The top 20 is the better way to do it. There's no doubting that. Would I be surprised if he's in contention on Sunday? Yes, but I wouldn't be surprised if he is right amongst the cut line, and then anything can happen from there. Shoots a 64 on the final day.
We've had 1,000 to 1 shot make it into mid-morning on Saturday where we thought there was a chance of an each way. So he
died, but he's actually dead now. But he, it was a good run.
Yeah, I mean, we had a shot there. Okay, let's close it up. Let's go back through our cards. You can go first.
Yeah, so Bert Wiesberger for me at 25 to 1, Pablo Rafabout 35 to 1. Schneider, I think, is a little bit shorter over there, but he's 100 to 1 over here. I think maybe 60 or 80 to 1 with you guys. Ross Fisher 100 to 1 and Paul Waring 200 to 1, just because I like punishment.
Oliver Becker for me 40 to 1. Nicholas Norgard Moeller 80. Mashiro Kawamura, 95. Christopher Broberg, 125 to 1. Kazuki Higa, 130 to 1. Ricardo Gouvet, 250. Yannick Debrun, 1,000 to 1. We'll get that top 20 there. And I would definitely say take a listen to your Peter Uihlein podcast, Lost for Words. I already see the Twitter mentions lighting up as we go here. I think it's just interesting. I'm having a lot of thoughts, and I think some interesting comments already coming back from people we respect and follow. And I think, not that I think I can agree with a lot of what's being said already. And it's just like, okay, does that impact, if positive, on the DP World Tour from a popularity standpoint, mean the best thing for the tour for some of these players to our conversation? It's just a very interesting development that's going to continue to happen. Sad in definite ways, and hopeful to keep the dream alive for many of the golfers that we just love.
What I would say about Peter Uihlein is he's very pro DP World Tour. Like, just to give a little snippet of the podcast, he was trying to get his card back before COVID. he was trying to get back onto the European Tour. He missed playing the European Tour. As we know, the best parts of his career came from there. He obviously just won on the Corn Ferry last year, missed out on a playoff earlier this season as well. But he's always felt more comfortable playing in Europe, and that's, you know, look, you can believe his motives all you like. He doesn't hide away from the reason that he took the offer. There's already a lot of negativity as we're talking through the podcast, but that's absolutely fine. You're not going to change people's minds, as I said. I would just implore that you listen to what he says before you sort of discount it. He's always been a guy that's probably been written off a little bit just because of who his dad is and things like that. And I actually respect a lot of what he's done throughout his career. So that's pretty much my sell. I think he, you know, if nothing else, he's very candid and honest, which is all you can really ask from someone. Yeah,
I definitely will be listening here. So wish everyone the best of luck this week. We have a big stretch. So we have the Irish Open. I can't believe the Irish Open's already next week.
Yeah, that's mad.
Scottish Open to follow, and then the Open Championship. I mean, it's a short runway that we have here, digging in that the event is a strong field. Next week, you mentioned Fitzy's brother, Alex, is teeing it up next week at the Irish. Maybe we'll do some on-course commentary in the PM wave after he tees off. But no, I'm excited.
He will be doing that.
Ahead.
He loves to chat. So I haven't actually seen the field for that yet, but I'm assuming it's pretty strong. I'm guessing Lowry's coming back over, and the guys that we've seen in the majors recently playing. Yeah,
Seamus Power teeing up.
Like that.
One of the better major players out there so far this year. So
cool.
Well, we'll sign off here. Good week. I know it was a long conversation today. We'll continue to have some of our probably longer pods of the year next few weeks. So best of luck, everybody, and we'll catch you next week.